And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another fantastic installment from very, very high above all the puerile and pedantic forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. For a Wednesday, there's a ton of stuff going on. I mean, yesterday was jam-packed with all sorts of different stories from all around the country. And it wasn't just because it was April Fool's Day, though I assume there were a lot of fooling around going on. But let me tell you a little bit about what I did yesterday. I've been telling you for a while, teasing for a while, that there's going to be some changes coming on the live program. And so yesterday, I spent the better part of a day working on that. And, you know, there are so many things that I have wanted to do with the program for a really long time. I mean, just so many bells and whistles that it would be really nice if I could figure out how to make that happen. You know, one of those that I always wanted to do was have the ability to take live calls. And we can do that right now on the program. And by the way, if you want to be part of the show today, the phone number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989 if you want to be part of the broadcast. I'll go ahead and leave the phone lines open all program long if there's something you want to talk about. I've got a huge list of things in the stack of stuff. So anyway, if one of those piques your interest and you want to comment on it, go ahead and give me a call. The phone number is 307-374-8989. That's 307-374-8989 is the number in the studio. So what I was talking about before was there's a lot of things that I've really wanted to do with the program. And, you know, we can take live calls now, which I think is super cool. I've always wanted to do that. In fact, when I started Cowboy State Politics, I wanted it to have the feel of a talk radio show. For my entire life, I've been a fan of Rush Limbaugh, and I don't remember the exact age that I started listening to talk radio, but I'm going to say it was like 9 or 10. I remember very clearly sitting in the basement of my parents' home. I had one of those huge console radios, the one that takes up an entire wall. And I was looking for Casey Kasem's Top 40. And I found the right station, but it wasn't Casey Kasem. It was Rush Limbaugh. And I just left it on and I started listening. And from then on, whenever I could, we'd listen to Rush Limbaugh. When I was in high school, on the Buffalo High School speech and debate team, we'd take some time whenever we could to listen to Rush Limbaugh. One of the guys on the team had their parents record episodes of Rush Limbaugh every once in a while, and we just play those, when we were on the bus or whatever. It was so it always been one of my dreams to be able to host a talk radio show. And at the time I started Cowboy State Politics, the liberals that controlled Sheridan Media or Bighorn Mountain Radio, not Shared Media, Bighorn Mountain Radio in Buffalo. There's no way they would give me a radio show. So I decided that I would start a podcast, and it would have the feel of a talk radio show. And I think I've accomplished that. But there are a ton. And by the way, when I started the program, there really weren't that many podcasts. Now, like, everybody's got a podcast. Everybody and their dog has one, and it's become kind of passé. But it was Cowboy State Politics that started political podcasts in the state of Wyoming. This was the first one. And it quickly became the most listened to. It still is the most listened to political podcast in the state. But you always have to grow. You have to improve. You have to hone your craft. And that's what we've done in what's coming. And let me just give you a couple teasers. Now, right now, we only have, one video picture. It's me the entire time. And, while I'm kind of appreciate that picture, it would be nice to be able to do some different things. So we've got the ability to do all sorts of different audio or video effects on the broadcast. We can do split screens. I can play stuff off my laptop. On TV when they're talking about a news article and they're quoting something, they throw the quotation up on the screen. Yeah, we can do that now. The studio's got a whole different feel to it. You're going to absolutely love it. And I am so excited to let you in on what's coming on the program. We're going to start that next Tuesday, by the way. So next Tuesday is the reveal date for the new Cowboy State Politics, and I am really excited to show it to you. So we're taking podcasting, video podcasting, to a whole nother level, a level that I don't think anybody's doing. And it's only appropriate that Cowboy State Politics be the one that does that. And so we've done that, putting the finishing touches on it as we speak. And next Tuesday, we'll let you in on what's happening. And later on in the week, hopefully, I'm hoping to have some sneak peeks that I can show you, so that you'll see. And, what I may do is just put out a quick video of what we're able to do in the studio, or at least, a couple of hints. So I'll try to have that up by Friday. So anyway, that's what's coming on the program. On today's show, one of what I think is the more important story that came out yesterday is the FBI had a gag order on all of its agents concerning the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, we all kind of assumed that this was the case. We really didn't hear anything of importance coming out of the FBI. And so, this is one of those things that we find out, years later, we were right. They absolutely did that. And I think this is a tremendously important story. So we're going to talk about that first off. But the Wyoming Democrats, yesterday was April Fool's Day. And let's just say that they took it to a whole new level. And they produced a fake press release from the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. They even used the Wyoming Freedom Caucus header on the fake press release. This is, if you want to know why our politics have become the way that they are, this is a perfect example. So we're going to talk about that. And then some important things that happened in the Wisconsin election. Unfortunately, the radical leftist backed by George Soros, spooky dude, won the election for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. However, we did make some gains, and a constitutional amendment passed that requires voter ID. So that's huge in Wisconsin. Probably the most important thing. Losing the Supreme Court seat, that wasn't that great, but requiring voter ID, extraordinarily important in a place like Wisconsin, which just about all of us conservatives believe, if not know, that there was rampant fraud happening in Wisconsin. There always has been. So I think that that's the most important thing. So anyway, lots to talk about on today's program. And once again, if you want to be part of the show, go ahead and give me a call at 307-374-8989. But we begin this morning with Breitbart News. The FBI gagged agents in 2020 to prevent voters from ever learning the truth about the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, of course, it was the New York Post that broke the story about the Hunter Biden laptop, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they broke it on Twitter. Well, the Democrats launched into action and made sure that post was taken down off of off of Twitter. And it was roundly denounced as Russian disinformation. Remember, if you have Joe Biden that was standing on the stage and he said, hey, I've got this letter by 54 intelligence people that says the Hunter Biden laptop is more Russia, Russia, Russia. And it was a gigantic lie from the very beginning. And when you're dealing with redcoats and Democrats, the number one thing that you cannot forget is they always lie. Always. And if they are not bald-faced lying, I mean, it's this side of the mouth, half-truth stuff that they use. But you can't ever forget that that's who they are. Let me give you a perfect example. At the Sheridan County Central Committee meeting, elections that were held on Monday, there were so many calls for people saying, and for both sides, people saying, hey, we got to work together. We're all on the same team here. We got to work together. We got to stop all of this divisiveness. And we got to work together. Well, the truth is that there have always been one group that does want to work together. That's the conservatives. But we know that when Democrats say the word compromise, what they really mean is do it our way. So the whole night, all we heard was calls for, togetherness and unity, and we got to work together, and we'll all be on the same team. And then the candidate for vice chairman, his name is Mike Evers, came up. And of course, as I always do, I did my research ahead of time. And by the way, I did record this whole thing. I just have not had time to go through the audio yet to make that available, but I will. And anyway, so Mike Evers gets up, and I stand up, and I say, so, Mr. Evers, hi. And he goes, hi. I'd never met him before. And I said, you're running for a leadership position in the Republican Party. Do you think that it is ever appropriate for a someone who is in your position, a member of the Republican Party, someone, campaigning to have a leadership seat, do you think it would be appropriate to financially support Democrats? And he says, oh, no, I don't think that would be appropriate at all. Well, I had to wait for the microphone to come back around to me. I got a little overzealous and tried to do the follow-up question right there, and I was shut down. Anyway, so the microphone came back around, and I said, now, Mr. Evers, considering the response you just gave to my last question, why then did you donate money to Hollis Hackman, a Democrat who was running against Bo Beitman, a Republican in Sheridan County? Can you explain that? And of course, I had the paperwork from the Wyoming Secretary of State's website in my hand. And he says, well, I didn't do that. No, I didn't do that. I don't know where you got that, but that wasn't me. And I held up the piece of paper, and he continued to deny it. Funny part about that is in the discussion that followed, all I heard was, he's a man of God. He's so spiritual. He's a healer. He is such a good person. And the whole time I'm going, yes, but he just bald-faced lied to you in front of everybody. I mean, the room was jam-packed. Everybody, every precinct man and precinct woman was in attendance. So that's 83 people was the number. And there was a lot of people in the crowd. So in front of a group of well over 100 people, he stood up in front of them and absolutely lied. So what my point is that you can never lose sight of the fact that Democrats and redcoats will lie to you. And you cannot have an honest discussion with somebody who is not not honest. I mean, you're not dealing with honest brokers here. And the big thing is Democrats and redcoats have a completely different worldview than do conservative Republicans. Here's the essential point, that conservatives would never agree that the ends justify the means. We would never say that as long as we accomplish the end goal, whatever that end goal may be, that it doesn't matter what we do to get there. It doesn't matter if we lie, it doesn't matter if we cheat, it doesn't matter if we steal. As long as we get that end goal, we're good. We would never agree to that. As conservatives, we think how we get somewhere is at least as important, if not more important, than the end goal itself. I mean, if you won by cheating, we would never accept that. It's Democrats, they don't look at the world like that. They absolutely believe that the ends justify the means. That's why when they lie, and all of us are shocked, like, oh, they just lied. I mean, it's a provable lie right there. And all of us are outraged at the deception, Democrats, you'll notice they don't even take a step back. It doesn't even bother them. Well, that's because they believe that as long as they win, as long as they gain power in whatever forum they're working in, then that's okay. You see, you cannot have an honest conversation with folks that have that worldview, which is why when you hear calls for unity and, we got so much division, this is a divided country, it's so divided. We got to work together. Why it never works out for conservatives, because we are not the same as liberals. And until conservatives get that through their thick skull, nothing's going to change. In fact, we're going to say compromise. The Democrats will say, yeah, do it our way. This is perfect. In fact, one of the precinct women on the other side said the quiet part out loud. The exact I don't have the exact quotation, but basically it was something like, well, if you want to work together, if you want unity, well, elect our guy. That's not exactly what we were saying. If we want to have unity, we elect the person on the other side of the aisle. Yeah, I don't really think so. What we were talking about is on ideas. Yeah. But Democrats don't look at it that way. So back to the article. I've gone stayed on topic, but a little bit, I digressed a little bit. Anyway, so to the Breitbart piece, internal chat messages obtained by investigative journalist Catherine Herridge and Michael Schellenberger show that, quote, senior bureau officials actively shut down discussion of the laptop's credibility in the days before the 2020 presidential election. According to the report, an FBI official told House investigators that an FBI employee inadvertently confirmed the laptop's authenticity during a conference call on the same day the New York Post published its bombshell story that implicated Joe Biden in his family's foreign business dealings. Quote, I recall that when the question came up, an intelligence analyst assigned to the Criminal Investigative Division said something to the effect of, quote, yes, the laptop is real, the official reportedly testified. Quote, I believe it was an Office of General Counsel attorney assigned to the Foreign Influence Task Force stepped in and said, we will not comment further on this topic. In a series of heavily redacted messages provided to the House for investigation purposes, an unnamed individual tells FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan, who, according to Catherine Herridge, was tasked with interacting with social media companies, that there is a, quote, gag order on discussions related to Hunter Biden's laptop. Chan reportedly told in a separate exchange that the official response is no comment. So the FBI had a gag order on the Hunter Biden laptop. Amazing. We'll talk about the implications of this when we get back from the break. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. It's spring-ish in Wyoming. Well, what that means for the uninitiated is that it's going to be 70 degrees one day and then snow 1.5 feet the next. And really, if you don't like those two options, just wait a little bit. The weather will change. I know, it sounds a little stressful, but really you should put your mind at ease and buy a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They'll keep you warm and dry even on the nastiest, coldest spring-ish day, and they'll keep you cool and dry even when it's 75 and sunny. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada. Straight to hell. Iceland. France. Asia's pretty cool.
And has the past 5 weeks just been more than you could bear? If that's the case, you have come to the right place. All you need to do is call my friend Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
In 1 week, Cowboy State Politics Live is going to show you what can be done on a podcast. We're going to take things to a whole new level. It's going to be amazing, my friends. I can't wait to show you about it. Show it to you. You can listen to watch the program on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and Rumble, pretty much everywhere. And I've thought about adding a couple more social media platforms, but really, 4 is enough, I would think. You never know. More is better, right? So anyway, welcome back to the program. David Iverson behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone. Before the break, we were talking about the FBI gag order on the Hunter Biden laptop. And again, this is one of those things that we all kind of assumed was the case. Nobody was really telling the truth about it. So, yeah, we kind of thought, hey, the FBI is involved. Who would doubt that? But now it turns out they absolutely were. Now, just think about that for a moment. The FBI at one time was the premier law enforcement agency on the planet. And now we find out that they were absolutely involved in a presidential election, that they were using the powers of the FBI for political purposes. And again, we already knew this, but here is the confirmation from Catherine Herridge. This is one of the things that, and President Trump was the object of all of this. How many prosecutions did they try? They impeached him twice, all on, pretty much all on the actions of the FBI, the Russia hoax, and all of the FISA warnings. And just think about everything they did to President Trump and conservatives, by the way. There were a lot of different people who were prosecuted, journalists and, activists and different people that operated in different political circles. The FBI had become a political operation. And that's absolutely amazing, my friends, that in America we took an amazing law enforcement apparatus and we turned it straight on the American people. And this is something that I never thought would happen in America. We always thought, well, it's the FBI. They're not going to be political and they're going to investigate crime. In America, it's we're a country of laws, not a country of men. But not during the 2020 election. That is not the case. That is not what happened. That is not what the administration turned the FBI into. The truth is, they tried to turn very effectively, by the way, our country into a nation of men and not a nation of laws. It was either Putin or Stalin that said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. That's not how our country works. We don't find a person that we dislike or that we disagree with and then try to concoct a crime and prosecute them. And, there was a famous book quite a while ago, and I believe the title was 7 Felonies a Day. The truth is, we have so many laws on the books that the average person probably commits at least, and the premise of the book is, though you don't know it, you probably commit 7 felonies every single day. And so if you are a nation of men and not a nation of laws, then all you got to do is find one of those felonies, boom, prosecute you, and you're done. And with the immense power of the federal government, there's really no way that the average person, Donald Trump almost didn't get out of it. And think about it. The federal government has a prosecutorial success rate of almost 100% because they have the unlimited resources of the federal government. And so when you have an FBI that's acting on entirely political information, that they are a political apparatus of the Democrat Party and of the office of the president, and they're not really focused on laws, the only thing they're doing is prosecuting conservatives. I mean, we no longer had a republic. And I don't know if you realize this or not, but for the years that Biden was in office, we did not really have a fair republic. It had all the looks and feel of a republic, but we weren't one nation under law. We were one nation under the Democrat Party. And for me, that is a really sad realization that the entire federal government was weaponized against conservatives and against Republicans. This has to be Trump's number one priority, and I'm absolutely sure that it is. That's why he put Kash Patel in charge of the FBI, and why Dan Bongino is the deputy director. So, amazing revelation from Catherine Herridge, and I've just loved her reporting, and it's just about everything that she does is high quality work. It's investigated and it's fully documented. Let's see here. Before we get to the Democrats, let's have a little baseball zen. Yesterday, Nathan Eovaldi, the phenomenal pitcher for the Texas Rangers, pitched the first complete shutout game of the 2025 MLB season. Here is a little bit of sound that I took off the Rangers X page. All of the strikeouts of Nathan Eovaldi. Take a listen.
Well, we'll push the Cards in. There's a swing and a miss. Started the game with a lot of ground ball outs. And now back-to-back strikeouts. This is it. Here comes a 2-2 pitch. And a swing and a miss. Got him on the splitter again.
Not only on the mound, that's the most important, but as a teammate too.
Oh, that's his fourth straight strikeout.
Yeah.
0-2 pitch. And that is strike three called. Got him on the curveball. 2-strike pitch, and he gets a swing and a miss. You mentioned it. Big part of it, what he's done on the field. Another big part of it, looking for his 8th strikeout of the night. And he got it. A split-fingered fastball, and Friedel down swinging to end the 6th.
Okay. So the Texas Rangers, a completely different team this year. They still are the Texas Rangers. You can't do much better than them. But really, they've done a lot of work this offseason, and they've got a team that is, if they stay healthy, I really think that they've got a good chance of making it definitely into the playoffs, perhaps the World Series. Jacob deGrom is back. He's the phenomenal pitching phenom that the Rangers hired that got hurt almost immediately out of the gate. He only pitched a couple innings last year, and he missed the entire season in 2023 when they won the World Series. Well, he's back. Nathan Eovaldi. They hired some sluggers. Berger, who's playing first base. He replaced, Nathaniel Lowe. So anyway, super exciting. Baseball is just now starting, and the Rangers are off to a good start. So there's your moment of baseball zen. Yesterday, of course, we all know it was April Fool's Day. I kind of broke with tradition yesterday. I didn't put together an April Fool's episode. I figured there was enough silliness going on that I really didn't need to do that. And let's be honest, the Democrats in Wyoming are doing enough that I really didn't have to. They are the ones that are behind all of Harriet Hageman's town halls that have been disrupted. And there's been a lot of misinformation on social media about these. Oh, no, it was Republicans too. And Joe Barbudo got up at one of the Harriet's town halls and said, it's not just Democrats that are mad at you. There's Republicans too. Okay, well, what he didn't, and again, this goes back to what I was talking about at the top of the episode, that Democrats lie. And if they're not completely lying, they're only giving you half of the information. Well, a lot of the people that were really ticked off, who happened to be Republican, really were of the red coat variety. People who were Democrats that realized that they had to cross over and vote if they wanted to have any impact on the primary election, because Democrats suck in Wyoming. They barely have 10% of the vote, which is the threshold to be a major party. Well, yesterday, they put out a fake press release purported to be from the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. And let me read this to you. And again, I mean, if you look at it, of course, this is on the Wyoming Democrats X page. And I hold it up for the camera, but the printing on it is kind of light. So I don't think that you could probably be able to hear it or be able to see it. But here's what it says. Quote, Wyoming Freedom Caucus announces first bill in their 6 and dime plan, restoring tradition to the state seal. And I quote, the Wyoming Freedom Caucus is already looking ahead to the 2026 budget session with the announcement of their first priority bill in its newly expanded 6 and dime plan, legislation to remove the words equal rights from the state of Wyoming, or the Great Seal of the state of Wyoming. Quote, this bill is just a further step in our efforts to eliminate the radical left's woke DEI agenda from every level of government, said Freedom Caucus Chairwoman Rachel Rodriguez-Williams. Quote, symbols matter, and it's time our state reflects on our values, not progressive talking points. The words equal rights currently appear above the female figure on the seal, a relic of an earlier time that, according to the caucus, has become a vehicle for leftist ideology. Quote, equal rights has become a Trojan horse for government overreach, gender confusion, forced pronouns, and taxpayer-funded drag shows, says Representative John Baer of Gillette. This is about reclaiming Wyoming's identity. The Freedom Caucus is considering several alternatives to replace the phrase, including faith, family, and freedom, no woke zone, no masks, and no mandates. House Speaker Chip Nyman embraced the measure as, quote, a return to common sense and constitutional principles, adding, quote, it's not the state's job to guarantee equal outcomes. Our seal should reflect personal responsibility, not federal buzzwords. The bill is expected to be introduced on the first day of the 2026 budget session. Further details of the 6 and dime agenda will be released in the coming weeks. So that is the fake press release that the Wyoming Democrats released. And, you know, I mean, if you're a conservative, you're going to read this and you're like, yeah, that's bullcrap. But if you are one of those folks that's on the fence, that's been fed a whole bunch of BS from the Democrats about who and what the Freedom Caucus stands for, well, you may believe this, and that they put it on official letterhead, and that it absolutely looks to be that it came from the Freedom Caucus. The Wyoming Democrats are the ones that continue to say, we need to work together. The country's so divided. You know, all these conservatives, they're just against our radical woke agenda. Well, we are. That's true. But it is not the conservative Republicans who are refusing to work with anybody. I could probably give Representative Pendergraft a call right now, or John Baer, or Rachel Rodriguez-Williams, or any member of the Freedom Caucus, and they'll tell you how they did try to work with Democrats, if not overtly, on the side on different pieces of legislation. And it is another in the string of, and I want to use the word falsehoods. I mean, because that's really what it is. But it's bullcrap. It's propaganda coming from the Democrat establishment in Wyoming, which really is not. And I guess, if you count the redcoats, yeah, you could say it's the Democrat establishment because, the vast majority of those people who are not in line with the conservative contingent in the House, I mean, they vote with the Democrats an overwhelming majority. Most of them in the high 70th percentile with the Democrats. And, they still claim to be Republicans. They still claim to be conservatives. And I mean, they really are the folks that show up on your doorstep and say, hey, I'm a conservative. You should vote for me. So more deception from the Wyoming Democrats, which, of course, they are Democrats, so you really shouldn't expect anything different from them. I mean, why would you? That's kind of who they are. Don't trust them ever. So anyway, more when we come back.
Here at U.S. Coin Capital, we hear from Americans across the United States who have a growing concern about the future purchasing power of U.S. paper money. Many Americans are looking for an alternative for long-term capital. For more than 35 years, the people at U.S. Coin Capital have educated American investors on how to properly accumulate United States gold and silver coins. Call us at 1-800-878-2646 or visit us on the web, uscoincapital.com.
Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics.
Some say standing up for what you believe in is being extreme. Ask any woman in Wyoming. They'll tell you this is called courage. The mainstream media claims that holding the line on important issues is being unreasonable. My mom taught me this is called staying true to our principles. In other places, people argue you always have to compromise to get something done. Here in Wyoming, we know that some things are worth protecting at all costs. Some say it's time we give up on the values that made our state great to accommodate toxic culture. I say it's time to stand tall and protect the values that have served Wyoming well for over 134 years. Join Honor Wyoming as we defend and preserve the Wyoming way of life. Find out how you can make a difference today.
Visit honorwyoming.org. Welcome back to the program, my friends. It's El David on Cowboy State Politics Live. Documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. A record that nobody in the mainstream media or in other places can even come close to. That's because I do my homework and I make sure I check my sources, which is something that, the other guys, they really don't do. I woke up this morning and I was kind of bummed out because veteran actor Val Kilmer has died at the age of 65. And, he's been having a lot of health problems, throat cancer, and, he passed away from pneumonia yesterday. And I thought, we probably ought to do a little bit of homage to one of my favorite actors, or at least one of the actors in one of my favorite movies. I mean, who has not seen Tombstone? And if you haven't seen Tombstone, what the heck is wrong with you? I mean, it is one of the best westerns. I mean, it's on my list of best westerns. But here's one of my favorite scenes from Tombstone.
Well, I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry.
Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Fight's not with you, Holiday.
I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember?
I was just fooling about.
I wasn't.
I loved Doc Holliday in Tombstone. One of my favorite characters. And, just about everybody I know has a favorite line from that movie. So, sad day in the movie business, Val Kilmer has passed away. Now, one of the big stories that came out yesterday is that Kid Rock, Bill Maher, of all people, Dana White had dinner with President Trump in the White House. And shockingly, Bill Maher, even though he has donated a fortune, millions upon millions of dollars to conservatives, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, probably donated to Bill Clinton too, has never been invited to the White House. Well, it was Kid Rock's idea to see if they could break bread together, sit down and have a nice meal and maybe, get a conversation started. And, this is the type of thing that I do think that conservatives and Democrats, conservative Republicans and Democrats need to do. We can sit down and have a conversation. Just because we disagree doesn't necessarily mean that we hate each other. In fact, on the podcast today, I'm going to publish an interview I did with Gabriel Green. Gabriel Green was the guy that I played audio from him that was recorded at a Sheridan County Democrat meeting, the one where he's pretty nasty to conservatives. Well, I sat down with him and we had what I think was a fairly pleasant conversation. Now, it got a little contentious here or there, but on today's podcast, I'm going to play that interview in its entirety. And you can hear the conversation, and you can hear, maybe somebody wasn't exactly telling the truth, but that's going to be on the podcast today. So, but my point is that we were able to sit down and have a conversation, and actually afterward, we spent probably 5 or 10 minutes talking about the Bible, really, the book of Judges, and we did have a pleasant conversation, even though we fundamentally disagree on a whole bunch of stuff. We were still able to have a conversation. Now, one of the things that happened during that meeting was that Kid Rock sat down and played the White House piano that was donated to the White House by Steinway. I think it was donated in like the 1980s. But here's Kid Rock playing the White House piano. Listen to this. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool, right? So anyway, there's lots of interviews with Kid Rock. I haven't seen anything from Bill Maher yet, but he talks very highly of the conversation that they were able to have over dinner, and they talked about some of the things they agree on and some of the things that they don't. So anyway, pretty cool, but that's what, if you want to have a discussion, that's fine, but you have to deal with honest brokers. And, I've played Bill Maher sound bites on the program a lot because I think that he's an honest Democrat. And I need to qualify that. At least he admits that he's a Democrat, and he's not one of the wacko lefties. I mean, he is on the left, but he's more of your classic liberal. He just believes in bigger government, more government spending, and generally doesn't like Republicans. But that doesn't mean you can't sit down and have a conversation. I can't tell you how many different people on the left that I've invited to come on Cowboy State Politics, and there's only been one of them that showed up. Now, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people that think that they're conservatives, but I've never had anybody except until Gabriel Green, who was actually a Democrat, come on the program. And we can agree to disagree. We can have a great conversation, but you got to be dealing with an honest broker. And that is one of the bigger challenges with the American left. Yesterday, there was a really big election happening in Wisconsin. Now, I would say that every election is big, but this one had some pretty significant implications for the entire state. There was a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court that was up, and in Wisconsin, they elect their Supreme Court justices. We don't do that here in Wyoming. In Wyoming, they're appointed. And the way that works is we have a judicial nominating commission. Actually, there's a seat open on our Supreme Court right now, which I'm terrified is what of who the governor is going to choose. But anyway, in Wisconsin, they elect them. So from, I believe, this one is also from Breitbart, and I quote, President Donald Trump lauded the passage of an amendment in Wisconsin on Tuesday that will enshrine voter ID into the state constitution. Here's what he put on Truth Social. Quote, voter ID just approved in Wisconsin election. Democrats fought hard against this, presumably so they can cheat. The 45th and 47th president said in a post on Truth Social, this is a big win for Republicans, maybe the biggest win of the night. It should allow us to win Wisconsin, like I just did in the presidential election for many years to come. Photographic identification for voting. Section 1, here's what the amendment says. Of Article 3 of the Constitution be created to require that voters present valid photographic identification verifying their identity in order to vote in any election, subject to exceptions which may be established by law. The amendment overwhelmingly passed the Badger State as of 10:45 last night, and it was 62.6% of the population that voters that approved that measure. The state passed a voter ID requirement in 2011, which was held up in court for several years, but ultimately went into effect. Enshrining the voter ID law into the state constitution will make it much more difficult for the legislature or courts to repeal it. Democrats across the U.S. have long insisted that making voters show identification is somehow racist, although polling shows Americans largely reject that assertion and want more laws protecting election integrity. And you hear this claim by the Democrats all the time that voter ID, it's so racist because you're actually asking people to go get a piece of identification, and it's absolutely incredible. I don't know a single person that doesn't have an ID. And just think about all the things that you have to have an ID for: to buy a 6-pack of beer, buy a pack of cigarettes, go to an R-rated movie. I mean, there are so many things that you have to have an ID for. And it's awesome that Wisconsin actually passed that. Well, let's go ahead and take a call. We haven't taken one all program, so let's go ahead and talk to Jim Newton. Jim, welcome to the program. How's it going this morning? Hello, Jim.
Voter ID. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, David, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. If you could mute me in the background, that'll make it a lot easier for us to hear you.
Awesome. All right.
So how are we doing?
Hey, David, I was calling you about... Good. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I mean, I'm having a great program. So
hey, I just wanted to call and tell you I wanted to just kind of tell you that I really agreed with you kind of on when you deal with Democrats and rhinos and things about when they talk about compromise and things like that. It reminded me of when Joe Biden was just elected president and took office, and we'd sent up Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Joe Biden's answer to their 2-hour meeting was, "Well, just do it my way, and everything will be fine."
Exactly.
I mean, they came up there kind of hat in hand, trying to legitimately talk to them about trying to find some common ground, and they never were even open for that. So.
Well, it's amazing, Jim, because, most conservatives I know are absolutely in favor of sitting down and having a discussion. But the problem is that if you're trying to talk about stuff with somebody who's not being honest with you, there's really no reason to continue the conversation because it's going nowhere from the very beginning. And, we see the situation in Wyoming. A perfect example is the tax cut bill. So the House passed House Bill 169, which was essentially a 50% reduction, and I think that there was some there was some reimbursement to counties in there, but the House passed that bill. The Senate passed Senate File 69, and from what I've been told, the Senate pretty much said, "Hey, you're gonna do it our way, or there's not going to be any bill." Well, that's not how our system works. It's people on the left and the redcoats, they always say all the time, well, let's compromise. But like you said, they don't believe that. What they mean is do it our way.
Yeah, absolutely, David. I mean, no, and I agree. It happens in Wyoming. I live in Natrona County, and that happens even more frequently here.
Oh, so, boy. Yeah. Natrona County is like Redcoat Central, man.
Yeah, they want civility is kind of a code word for do what we want. Do it as we tell you to do it. So,
exactly right. And in Natrona County is actually, it actually happened in Cheyenne, but Joe McGinley, the perfect example of what they really mean by civility. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was a video put out by the Frontier Republicans, and it was Gail Simmons and Joe McGinley and Doug Camblin from Gillette. And the entire meeting, they're talking about civility, and the very first thing that Joe McGinley does is he doesn't outright call conservative cockroaches, but what he says is we're going to shine a light on these people. And you know what happens when you turn on a light? Everything scurries away. So they talk about civility out of one side of their mouth, and the other side, they're really telling you that they actually hate conservatives.
Yeah. No, it's an ongoing battle there. So, or here, I should say. Yeah. So but we'll keep trying. But it is interesting. How people tell you that. So
a quick question for you. I've got a piece of video from a town hall that was held by, I think Tony Locke was there and probably Bill Alaman and a couple other legislators. But there was a big scuffle between the Evansville mayor and the conservatives. Have you heard anything about that? Were you at that meeting?
I haven't, David. Sorry, I wasn't at that meeting. Unfortunately, I wanted to go. I think it was sponsored by my representative Tony Locke and Jamie Lean, actually, I think but I'm sure Bill Alamon was there as well. And so, I didn't hear about that. No, the only thing I've seen is kind of Jamie Lean and our mayor, Ray Pacheco, having some Facebook, conversation. Well, I don't know how you'd say it. It's some disagreements about what exactly the budget, how the budget was going to work and things. So, yeah.
Exactly right. Well, Jim, I appreciate the call, man. I got to run, but keep
absolutely. Thanks for.
Yeah, man. If you hear anything, keep me apprised. Let me know what's happening down there. Have a good one.
I will. Thanks so much, David. See ya. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks to Jim from Natrona County. If you want to be part of the program, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989 if you want to be part of the program. Well, let's see here. I've got a whole bunch more in the stack of stuff, but let's go ahead and take our last break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Cory Booker, his 20-hour speech, and the only thing that he really proved is that he has nothing to say. He wanted a historic moment, but it wasn't his. It was one of his staffers. You're going to love this. Coming right back at you. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live. You can listen to the program on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Rumble, pretty much everywhere. It's almost like I'm omnipresent. If you miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics Live, you can always go to the live replay, which is located at the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, under the live replay button. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics Live every Tuesday through Friday at 8 a.m. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm your host, David Iverson. Wyoming's conservative voice. Welcome back to the program, my friends. Before the break, I told you about Cory Booker, and he gave a 20-hour speech on the floor of the U.S. Senate. Now, I'm sure what he was going for was kind of a Mr. Smith goes to Washington type thing. That he wanted it to appear that he was giving this marathon speech to object to a piece of legislation. The only thing is, it wasn't a filibuster, and he wasn't speaking on a piece of legislation. The only thing that he was doing was complaining about President Trump for 20 hours. And the only thing that he really proved is that he has absolutely nothing to say. Now, I'm not going to play you anything from his stupid speech because it was more Cory Booker leftist mumbo jumbo. But what I will play for you is a little piece of a video that he put out before he gave his useless and absolutely ineffectual 20-hour speech on the floor of the Senate. Here is Cory Booker telling you what he's planning to do.
So I'm recording this to post while I'm on the Senate floor. I know there's lots of platforms you can watch it if you want, but I wanted to say here that I'm on that floor and I'm going to be speaking about what Donald Trump is doing to our nation. And now with this tariff, we are going to see more reckless steps taken that are going to raise more prices for Americans and cost our economy even more. So many things that I'll be detailing in this speech. And so it's my plan to continue to go for as long as I possibly can. We saved healthcare last time, not because somehow our persuasive abilities as senators got John McCain to change his mind. It was the voice of citizens. I think we have the power. No, I know we have the power. I believe the power of the people is greater than the people in power. So I hope to use my voice to do what people are calling on me to do.
So Cory Booker thinks that people are calling on him to say absolutely nothing for 20 hours. And do you think that hardly anybody watched it? Most people don't watch what happens on the floor of the legislature. Though, you know what? In Wyoming, I was talking to Trotsky. Yeah, see, somebody that I disagree with, that I talk to, not on a regular basis, but at least infrequently. And he told me he was doing a study into how many people were watching the videos from the legislature, and he said that it was a dramatic increase this year. So in Wyoming we do pay attention, but I'm betting that hardly anybody was watching Cory Booker's 20-hour speech. Look there, my voice cracked. Anyway, from Breitbart, and I quote, Senator Cory Booker has been speaking on the Senate floor for more than 13 hours and has stated that he will speak for as long as he is physically able to do so to protest what Donald Trump was doing. And we just watched the video. Now, Booker also referenced how on April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs will be imposed on all countries, that's today, by the way, that have tariffs on the U.S. exports, and noted that the tariff would lead to more reckless steps taken that would increase prices for Americans. So, on USA Today reported that Booker was nearing almost 14 hours as of 7 p.m. on Friday. And, I've looked through several different versions of what happened, and nobody can really say what he was trying to do. That's because Cory Booker really didn't have a plan. He was just complaining about President Trump for 20 hours, and it would have had, and I'm sure, everybody remember his Spartacus moment? I am Spartacus. Well, Spartacus did something to prove a point, and the point was to, protect one of his friends. Cory Booker was just looking for headlines, and he did it by doing absolutely nothing. Now, in fact, Cory Booker's speech is not going to be remembered for the 20 hours on the floor of the Senate. What he will be remembered for is from The Federalist, and I quote, let's see here. Report, Democrat Senator Cory Booker's staffer arrested for carrying a gun on Capitol grounds as the senator began his all-night speech, and I quote, if Senator Cory Booker hopes his all-night theatrics on Monday will be remembered, thanks to one of his staffers, they will be. Booker's staff member, Kevin Batts, was arrested Monday evening for carrying a pistol on Capitol grounds moments before Booker began an all-night speech on the Senate floor protesting Donald Trump. A reporter witnessed the staffer, Kevin Batts, being arrested Monday at 6:29 p.m. as Booker prepared to begin his speech at around 7 o'clock. He was handcuffed and placed in the back seat of a Capitol police car outside the Senate. Let's see here. USCP, Capitol Police, confirmed the arrest Tuesday while Booker spoke on the Senate floor. Now listen to this next part. Quote, yesterday, in the afternoon, a member of Congress led an ID'd staff member around security screening at the Hart Senate office building, the U.S. Capitol Police said in a statement. Later that evening, outside the Senate galleries, the ID'd staff member, who is a retired law enforcement officer, obviously not a very good one, told our officers that he was armed. Quote, all weapons are prohibited on Capitol grounds, even if you're a retired law enforcement officer. Now, Cory Booker is an avid Second Amendment restrictionist and has backed up his justification with false claims, including, quote, we have more people in America that have died in my short lifetime due to gun violence than in every single one of our wars. That's not even close to true. But think about this. Cory Booker, the guy that he would be first in line to say that we need more restrictions on firearms, and yet he's the one that led his staff member around the security screening, obviously because he knew the guy was carrying a firearm. So it's guns for thee, no guns for thee, but plenty for me. So long as the Democrats can have armed security around them, it's totally fine. But for you to be able to carry your firearm and protect yourself and your family, well, we just have to restrict all of that, just like the law that was just passed in Colorado that pretty much bans all semi-automatic firearms. And I mean, there's some restrictions on there, but really, when you look at it, they're trying to ban all semi-automatic firearms. So Cory Booker, going to be remembered for breaking the law with Capitol Police and getting his staff member arrested, and not for his ridiculously and completely irrelevant 20-hour speech that did absolutely nothing. Well, we've come to the end of another busy broadcast hour on the program, my friends. Make sure that you keep it tuned to Cowboy State Politics. The podcast will be released, I'm thinking, probably around 10:30. I've got some work still to do on it. More Gabriel Green stuff. It's an interesting interview. And, there's lots of stuff that wasn't exactly correct in there. So let's see here. Other things. So next Tuesday, don't forget, I'm going to be unveiling the new program. We're taking the video podcast to a whole new level. Lots of things that I've wanted to do for a very long time. And hopefully in the coming days, I'll have a couple of sneak peeks for you so you can see a little bit of what's happening in the studio. I'm not going to release it all until it's next Tuesday. So have a good rest of your week or rest of your day, my friends. But for now, from the Cowboy State Politics studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. I'll see you tomorrow.